So, John, what's happening?
Well, Dr. Bill, one of my private contacts from United States Northern Command in Denver contacted me today and let me know that there's absolutely frenzied activity at United States Northern Command, also called U.S. NORTHCOM. Unprecedented frenzied activity, and they're frantically also getting in as much extra food as they can into their headquarters, with no further explanation on that. The second thing is this Canary Island deal, another private source, and I sent you a sanitized version. I need to protect my source, but my private source, and of course the public information, is that this volcano on the Canary Island is going to cut loose in a week or so. It won't be 2 or 3 weeks or months. It will be maybe 7 to 10 days is what we're probably looking at.
And by the way, the Canary Island ones, the conventional media, BBC has done specials on this over the last 2 decades, and National Geographic. This is not like a fringe thing. People need to realize that 99% of what we report, what you report, is from the regular media, but you also have military and inside sources that correlate with that and extend beyond that, but it's based on solid, hard science. And this means this thing is about to blow, and when it does, it runs the risk of generating enough steam vents behind this giant 400 cubic mile sized block of volcanic island and shoving it like a ship going in for, the christening with a big bottle of champagne. Unfortunately, it generates a wall of water at the site around 800 to 900 feet high, and when it hits North America, it can be 300 feet high, traveling at 600 miles an hour. So
that's right.
That's a jumbo jet heading toward you of water. When it hits the coast of the United States at 300, it's just not going to go in yards. It's going to go in tens of miles, probably as far in some places as 100 miles inland.
That's right.
Literally plowing buildings that become then objects being pushed forward at, jumbo jet speeds against people, buildings, etc. And this is like we're not trying to just frighten you. We want you to know that the government will get an 8-hour warning, but whether they're going to get that to the people in time to get them evacuated out of the harm's way, if that does happen sometime, say in the next decade, it's going to probably happen sooner than we think, because the evacuations of these Azore Islands is happening as we speak, and there's a magma connection between the southern island and the Cumbre Viejo supervolcano that they know is going to slide off.
That's right, absolutely.
And it does it roughly every 300 years, according to the scientific reports. One of these islands has a big chunk of them fall off, and it generates a tsunami roughly 300 feet high that strikes North America. That's every 300 years.
That's precisely right, and that's why we're so concerned. We're putting the word out here on my show and on your show as much as we can to warn people in Florida and on the east coast of North America that this is a clear and present danger, especially people in Florida. 8 hours notice is not enough to get from southern Florida on overland and get to safety. Farther up in Georgia and South Carolina, 8 hours may be enough. It may be a good time to take a vacation, quite frankly.
Yeah, and in other words, north of Florida, if you have preparations and you have a run and go, and you have your radio set to kind of say, hey, you've got the notice, and it doesn't happen, let's say in the middle of the night. So by the time you got 15 minutes left to run, 15 minutes or an hour or two isn't going to get you, especially if the freeways and the roadways get jammed with people panicking to try to get out.
Absolutely. Yeah. If there's only 2 north-south highways in Florida of any consequence, the interstates, and it would take 15 or 20 minutes for them to be jammed.
And we can't tell when it's going to happen, but if they're evacuating the Azore Islands, that's not a good sign. It's a sign that you better be on your best alert system and have your antenna up and be ready to run.
Although earthquakes are by far the most common cause of tsunamis, there is another source for these deadly waves: landslides. And these tsunamis have the potential to be so big that they have been called Mega-Tsunamis. Scientists had long suspected that waves could be generated in this way, but conclusive photographic proof wasn't available until 1958. A landslide into Latoya Bay in Alaska triggered a wave that reached heights of several thousand feet. This footage, shot just after the tsunami struck, shows the wave's enormous power. The trees here once stretched all the way down to the shores of the bay, but were ripped off the slopes by a wall of water, leaving nothing but bare, exposed rock. The tsunami was generated when a relatively small earthquake triggered a single enormous landslide of rocks and debris into the bay. The resulting wave was higher than the Empire State Building and stunned scientists around the world. Tsunamis on this scale are incredibly rare. But another mega-tsunami, triggered by a rockfall 10,000 times bigger than Latoya Bay, could be on its way from a small island across the Atlantic Ocean. The Canary Islands off the coast of Africa are formed from a series of volcanoes. The youngest is the island of La Palma. It is formed from two volcanic ridges. The first is the extinct Cumbre Nueva to the north of the island. The younger, active Cumbre Vieja lies to the south. It erupted as recently as 1971. Geologist Dr. Simon Day's research was crucial in developing the La Palma mega-tsunami theory. It began with an unusual rift that had opened up during a major volcanic eruption in 1949.
We're standing here in the fault, and it runs way down to the south along the crest of the volcano for 2.5 miles. So it's one continuous long structure.
Day believes this fault is evidence of a geological time bomb, the beginning of a giant landslide.
What we see here to my right are layers of volcanic rocks, volcanic blocks here, and layers of volcanic ash. And on the west of the fault, we see the same layers of blocks and ash, and those, before the fault moved, were joined up, and then when the fault moved, they were separated, and the rocks to my left moved down and to the west. What we think will happen in some future eruption is that this fault will have gotten bigger, and the whole of this western side will slide away in a giant landslide into the ocean to create the tsunami.
This landslide would send the entire southwest section of La Palma, 1/6 of the island's total mass, crashing into the Atlantic Ocean in a single giant landslide.
What we envisage is the whole of this coastline and the slope extending up all the way to the crest of the volcano that is now in the clouds. All of that mass of rock would slide away in a single massive landslide into the ocean and pushing the water up in front of it to create the tsunami wave.
Initially, this wave would be over 30 times bigger than the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, more than 3,000 feet high. The 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens was proof that a volcano could collapse in this terrifying fashion. This was impressive, but the collapse of the Cumbre Vieja would be 200 times the volume of this. 1,200 billion tons of rock would hurtle towards the ocean at top speed. The resulting wave would head straight out into the Atlantic.
That wave, of course, would then spread out and separate out into smaller waves. But even so, after crossing the Atlantic and piling up again on, for example, the eastern seaboard of the United States or in the Caribbean or in northern Brazil, the waves there, we predict, would still be between 30 and 100 feet high. So that's as large as, if not larger, than the tsunami that struck Sumatra in 2004.
Boston. New York. And even Miami could all be under threat from the giant waves.